Good morning, friends and members. A hearty welcome to all of you at the next edition of the VDMA CEO's Thought Leadership Series. And today, it's an honor and privilege for me to welcome Mr. Pankaj Vyas, who's the Chief Executive Officer and Managing Director at Siemens Technologies and Services Pvt. Limited. Hearty welcome to you, Pankaj.
Thank you, Rajesh. Thanks for having me here.
Right. Friends, Pankaj is an engineering graduate in computer science from BITS Pilani. And what is very interesting, Pankaj is inventor of multiple patents in IoT, networking, wireless communication, embedded products, and mobile applications. And friends, he holds 32 patents in these technological domains. So compliments on that, Pankaj. That is really very impressive.
Yeah. Thank you, Rajesh. Thank you.
And prior to joining Siemens, Pankaj was Vice President of the Digital Platform and Solutions and Head of Digital Engineering Team at GE Healthcare India. So again, Pankaj, hearty welcome to you at this edition of the VDMA CEO's Thought Leadership Series. Pankaj, coming to the present scenario, I think the last 6 to 7 months have been totally unprecedented. COVID has impacted more than 217 countries. And almost 31 million people have been infected with COVID. People call it the black swan of 2020. I think globally as well as domestically, we are seeing a huge economic recession. So Pankaj, let me start by asking you, what has been the impact of COVID at Siemens Technology and Services in India and in Germany? And maybe I'll add one more part to it, Pankaj, is that since you have a very large workforce here in India, almost 5,500 people. So what is going to be the new normal in, for example, in Bangalore or in India, Pankaj?
Sure. I mean, I think as everybody went through this right at the starting phase, correct? If you look at how this whole thing started about 6 months back, sometime in mid-March, right? Of course, we as an organization always have been focused on wellness of our employees, safety of our employees, and there's always a focus on the productivity and getting things done for the business and for all our stakeholders. But as we started getting into this phenomena and responding to a situation, definitely employee safety was at the kind of top, right? I mean, we had to make sure that we don't compromise on it. And very effectively, we kind of transitioned into working from home for almost 100% employees, 5,500 employees. Immediately when we got into this situation, we did not kind of even do it in a staggered manner. Of course, there were a few hiccups as we started because nobody was prepared for anything like this. So we started with that kind of a situation as to transition everything. We had to work on our IT infrastructure and all of that. But today, 6 months, fast forward 6 months today, we have almost the same productivity levels across different segments that we work in spite of having everybody working from home. As of today, also, I would say more than 95% people are still working from home. The only ones, those who go to office or rather are allowed to go to office, I would say it's really controlled. It's not that if you want to go to office, you can. It's kind of, you have to have an exceptional reason to be in office today. That's the mode we are working in. So people, those who have to be in the lab to get certain, access to the hardware, which is not available at home, are the people in office. And also these guys are helping other colleagues who are not able to get into office to get some testing done, to get some things done, which is not possible doing at home. So that's kind of our, way of responding. And also, I would say this whole thing has been, I mean, I wish we don't need this kind of events to see some better aspects developing in organization. I can say that there's more empathy in organization. There's more care for each other, right? Because we all are going through this together. It's not like only one guy is fallen sick or only somebody's having trouble in life. We all as people on this planet are going through it. And within the organization, I mean, that sense, I can see that there's more empathy, right? Then also I'm sensing that there's more inclusiveness when we talk to global partners. Not that there was less inclusiveness, But let's understand, if only two people were able to travel for a certain discussion, right? Then only those two guys are there. Rest of the people are attending virtually. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. There are logistical aspects. But with this thing, everybody is on the same platform. Everybody is on the virtual platform. So it's a kind of an equalizer that leads to more inclusiveness. So there are more people able to participate in larger discussions, right? So it has led to more inclusiveness, and I'm sure it must be true for a lot of other organizations and not just STSPL. So that's the kind of a second thing. Now coming to a new norm, right? Which, and as we start getting back to office, but as an organization within STSPL, we are very clear that we will not start getting into office till the time we don't see a sustained and a large reduction in the number of cases all around us in India, at least, right? So assuming, and I'm hopeful that will happen soon, and then we kind of start getting back to office in a staggered and phased manner. But as an organization globally also, we have made a decision that we should continue to have a possibility and encourage our employees to work from home at least 2 days a week, even going forward, right?
That's interesting.
This is a global thing. I mean, this is really coming all the way from our CEO and top leadership in Germany. And this is really based on empowerment and trust, correct?
Absolutely.
It's really focusing on outcomes rather than counting somebody's hours in the office. And we can already see that it works, right? It really works. I mean, right now that's what is going on. So going forward, in terms of new normal, I think this is what's going to continue, where we'll have at least 2 days a week people would continue to work from home. That gives them better work-life balance. That gives them more productive time to do things which would help them in life and the organization as a whole also. And I think this whole culture of inclusiveness will continue to grow as we see in the new normal, because this equalizer that we have found now through the digital platform, I think will continue to evolve. So that's a kind of new normal. The other aspect that we are doing quite proactively across all our sites in Siemens worldwide, right, is using our own solution called Comfy. Comfy is basically how do you manage your site, how do you manage your workplace, how do you use your workplace, how do you allocate a seat, how do you block seats. So we are going to deploy this solution in all our Siemens offices, where which will enable us to bring in only certain number of people. People will be able to block their seats, will be able to maintain the social distancing, will be able to manage office and the premises a lot more effectively as people start coming to offices. Yeah.
Oh, that's very, very interesting. In fact, very interesting inputs, Pankaj, because when I've spoken to some of the CEOs of the engineering companies who are into manufacturing, in fact, there a few of them mentioned that the employees are looking to come back to office because their 6 months at home has also been quite a stressful period, managing the family, managing the household work, and a few of them mentioned specifically that the employees are actually eager to come back to the office so that they're away from home atmosphere for a little longer.
True. I agree. I mean, that's what I said, right? It's really about, are you allowed to get into office? I mean, you have to have that, approval in place, because of the current times. I mean, I am of opinion that having a flexibility to work from is a great thing, but always working from home can be difficult. I mean, there's an element of teamwork, there's an element of well-being with people, there's an element of collaborating in person, right? That cannot be substituted by any kind of digital technology.
Right. Pankaj, ingenuity for life. Now that is a very catchy slogan of Siemens. Can you elaborate a little bit on that? What is the sense behind this slogan, Pankaj?
Yeah, I'll tell you, first of all, it's for us people who are at Siemens, in Siemens family, right? It's more than okay. Right. We live with this, and it's just that maybe it's come out there. But if you look at Siemens history, more than 100 years, right? Right. You see the verticals that we operate in, correct? Be it industrial, be it infrastructure. Within infrastructure, we have smart grid and electrical infrastructure, and then the building solutions infrastructure. Then we have mobility, then we have energy, we have healthcare. I mean, these are the verticals. I'm not saying these are the only verticals, but these are the verticals which really form a foundation of a healthy community, right? This is really a foundation of a society that in terms of the physical elements that you need to work efficiently on, right? And Siemens always has been about how do you have a purpose behind everything that we do, right? If you look at what we do in industrial, it's really about how do we make sure that we have a clean environment in the manufacturings, right? How do we have safety of the people who are working inside the manufacturing units, right? How do we make sure that the production is done in a way which is not hurting the environment? How do we make it further safer and cleaner? If you look at infrastructure, how do we make it energy efficient, make it green? How do we make it smart? How do we make it comfortable also people who are using this infrastructure? Mobility is again about how do you provide efficient mobility from point A to B and don't compromise on safety, right? Same with energy, clean energy, and healthcare, of course. I mean, that's really touching the lives as closely as you can, right? So across all these verticals, there's a purpose that how do you touch lives of people on this planet in certain positive way, right? And for us to do that in better ways every year that goes by, there needs to be a significant and meaningful invention behind it, right? For us to push the envelope forward, there needs to be a meaningful invention, innovation, and that's what that ingenuity for life means, right? Okay. Where it has to, how do you kind of innovate and invent, which is going to affect the lives positively across all the businesses that we operate in. So that's been our culture. I mean, even today when we have a lot of discussions and town halls across leadership levels, different regions, this element is something which always stays alive.
Yeah, very interesting. Yeah. And thank you for explaining that also, the purpose of that. Thank you, Pankaj. Pankaj, the Black Swan event has made manufacturing relook at the whole digital transformation strategy. In what way can smart manufacturing with digital transformation address especially the challenges arising out of supply chain disruptions? We saw COVID led to a lot of supply chain disruptions, especially when it started with China, because as India, we are quite dependent on imports from China in many of these sectors. So how can smart manufacturing with digital transformation really help in this supply, so that the supply chain disruptions do not take place?
Sure. Yeah, I think that's a very interesting point, and what more I think about it, let's just step back first, right? What is smart manufacturing, right? I mean, that itself, people have different
Yes.
definitions and connotations to it, right? I mean, it's really about, if you look at a certain manufacturing plant, right, or a floor, most of things are done based on an individual operating a plant, people who are running the plant, and their ability to make certain decisions, their ability to respond to certain events, their ability to plan certain things, right? And there's always an element of some human error coming in place. Your ability to respond to certain situations can lead to certain lags, right? And there, how do you bring in technology, not to replace human beings, not to replace human behavior, but to kind of fix the gaps which can hurt your manufacturing plant in the longer run, right? So you bring in the technologies and you try to make it smarter. How do you make it smarter? You basically plug in the new age technologies, be it smart sensors, right kind of compute with the form factor, right kind of communication technologies. So you can collect certain data points across your manufacturing lines and find information out of that data, which is actionable information, and you act on it in time, right? And remove this lot of possibility of human error that may happen inside, right? So that's really at a very high level, I would say, smart manufacturing. And manufacturing by nature is risk averse, and rightfully so, because you can't play around with the plant unless there are proven technologies. But today, when we look at be it sensors, compute, or communication, they have evolved a lot. Right. Price points have become more favorable to get adopted in manufacturing plants and places where they were not possible earlier. So all those are coming into place. Now you have, let's say, a smart manufacturing. Everything is done within your manufacturing plant. You are getting all the data points and actionable items. But if you're not able to take this forward and connect with your supply chain, right, then that's kind of broken, right? I mean, you have an island of called, let's say, a smart manufacturing plant. You have a smart supply chain system, which is also having its own smart ways of doing tracking and digitalization, smart logistics, and all of that. But if these two islands can get connected, that can be a tremendous ability to respond to supply chain disruptions that we just talked about, right? If I have certain way of getting the information on what's my material availability required for production, right? If I could get that digitally and feed it into my supply chain system, right, and get that ready in time so that my production doesn't stop. Or on the other way, if I could get the feed from my supply chain system digitally in time, saying this may not work, right? And then that raises an alarm to guy who's managing the plant saying, hey, look, I need to work on some other options here, because that becomes an actionable information. So I think this ability to find the actionable information from smart manufacturing plans, plug it into your smart supply chain system, and make it then end-to-end kind of a smart manufacturing solution, I would say. That's how it completes it. But if you don't even have in first place the right ways to get the data points from your manufacturing plant, then your ability to respond to supply chain disruption is going to be limited. So I think that's where this whole ability to respond to supply chain disruptions. And as you see what's happening, right? I mean, as we started with this COVID phase, we had like really tough phase, and now people are talking about recovery, right? And people are coming up with different letters and shapes for recovery. Somebody will tell you it's going to be a long L, and then maybe it'll become a U. Somebody will tell you V. Somebody will tell you multiple V's and then multiple W's and whatnot, right? But, and that's not in our control, right? I mean, honestly, that's not in our control. But what's in our control from a guy who's running a manufacturing plant is how do I prepare myself to respond to this demand fluctuation that may happen. Because there's a demand, then there's a supply chain, and then there's your production. And if your demand is going to be fluctuating, that's going to impact how you produce. And that means your ability to work with supply chain smartly without having too much of delay and lag is a key here. And I think that's where a smart manufacturing tied with smart supply chain makes a lot more, I would say, a need of the hour today. Otherwise, it's going to be very difficult. See, the other element, when I think about this topic, I mean, suddenly we are at a time, not suddenly, over the time, that the way we consume products, the way we apply, get the products has changed. I mean, earlier in our young days, I hope I can call both of us not so young. In our young days, when our parents used to take out for shopping, we'll go to a store, we'll look at what is there, and we'll buy it or not buy it and come back, right? But today, our kids, they open phone. I mean, shopping is you open a phone, you look at the products, and then you even customize the colors what you want, right? And that puts a lot of pressure throughout the chain, because you have a multiple kind of distributors up there. You have ability to customize things, and then your distributor and sales guys need to respond to that. That means he's going to come to the production guy saying, do you have this? Can you customize it? So you should be in position to respond to that. And that means pressure on your supply chain also to give you a certain product which is required for manufacturing. So this whole chain is kind of getting challenged with the way consumer is consuming the products and asking for things. So flexibility is another aspect. One is about being able to respond through a smart supply chain connectivity, and second is about how flexibly you can respond to changing demands also.
I think it is like what you mentioned, Pankaj. It's like a digital thread. We are connecting the supplier, the producer, and the customer, all connected with a digital thread, so that the information inflow outflow is on real-time basis and one can react also.
Exactly.
I think the example you gave was very relevant, Pankaj, because when we talk about Industry 4.0, we are talking actually of mass customization. So you're talking about customization, but not on a larger scale, how we are going to do the mass customization in the
Correct,
future.
correct, correct, correct. Yeah, I think these are interesting times, and I think this is just going to get. I mean, if you add additive manufacturing into the mix,
Yes.
right? I mean, all of those things would make it even more interesting and
Yes.
challenging going forward for the production guys. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Pankaj, when we look at India, now the MSME sector, we have almost something like 63.4 million MSMEs in India. So they form the backbone also to a large extent for the Indian economy. 120 million people are employed by the MSME. They contribute almost 40% to the GDP. Uh, Now, Pankaj, how can MSMEs, if we have to grow, the MSMEs also have to grow. But when we talk about smart manufacturing or we talk about automation, how can MSMEs actually also benefit from the smart manufacturing, Pankaj?
Yeah, I mean, when you read about what's happening with MSMEs, it's quite painful, right? I mean, what they're going through, and especially in these times, right? I mean, access to capital. I mean, if you have access to capital, then where's the demand? If there's a demand, how long it will last? How do I respond to this demand, right? How do I manage my inventory? How do I manage my material flow? It's quite challenging from all that perspective. If you step back, any guy who is running MSME, right? When he or she looks at the business, you always want these four elements in the play, right? One, you want higher productivity. Uh,
Right.
you want better quality. You
Mhm.
want better safety, right?
Right.
And
Yeah.
third, you want lower cost.
Mhm.
These are the four elements that you would really look for, right, when you're running a manufacturing plant. I mean, I'm assuming everything else kind of, you are making sure you are not hurting the planet and you're keeping it green and clean. Having said that, as over-archiving thing, but these are the four elements, right? Productivity, quality, safety, and cost of operations. Correct. If you look at what has happened applying the digitalization technologies today in this space, right? If you again, as we just talked about a lot of other things, right? Cost of operation is very interesting thing. Maybe we start with that, right? For an MSME to work in challenging environments like this, it's not it's a very daunting task as to how do I plan how much material should I order, right? How do I plan as to how much inventory should I maintain, right? I mean, that's where a lot of digitalization techniques could be used, right? I mean, you could do a lot of smart analytics. You could really use AI to find out how the trend might emerge. And
Right.
again, as we said, right, you should be really connecting your real world of manufacturing to the real world of supply chain through the digital thread, as you said, right? To get the biggest and the kind of benefits and manage your cost more effectively, because having too much of materials order or too much of inventory in place, that means there's a cost of capital associated with
Right.
that, because
And
you need
yeah.
you have to be smart about that part, right? That is one. Now, if I start with the productivity, right, it's really about how do I do more with less, right? How do I produce more components in a shorter amount of time and having to spend less money in terms of having requiring lesser workforce, having requiring lesser electricity. So that means I should be able to make my production line leaner and smarter, right? And that's where applying digitalization technologies to monitor that complete flow and finding where the loopholes could be, where the lack could be, can get you a better productivity. That's really it's like technology, right? You apply right kind of sensors, you
Right.
find out things that could go wrong ahead of time, use predictive analytics, because
Yes.
if let's say you have order in place, but if your machine goes down because you did not foresee what could go wrong, that's a
Right.
lost opportunity, right? And world is very competitive. So I
Right.
think predictive analytics, monitoring overall kind of manufacturing plant or the overall flow of production,
Yeah.
definitely productivity plays a big role there, right? Second, I would say is quality. I mean, if you could deploy certain kind of technology to monitor closely how things are done, right?
Right.
which could mean lesser wastages. If you have a certain number of products getting produced and only there's a certain percentage being passed as right quality, you need to apply technology to find out where is the thing that's going wrong so that you can fix it. And you can't just trust human behavior there, because this has been happening for long, and you take help of technology. Again, I would say it's not about replacing anybody, but you take help of technology so your quality goes up, and which has an impact on your bottom line because your wastage goes down, right? Third is about safety. If you could really foresee what could go wrong in your manufacturing plant ahead of time, you can really avoid a lot of serious incidents on your manufacturing plant, which could even potentially cost a human life if not taken care of, right? So again, a technology can play a big role in all of this elements. So I would say our MSMEs can benefit a lot if digitalization done in a right way, right? Not in a fractured way, not for sake of doing it, but knowing what is my problem one or two, top two or three problems, and find a solution for that, right? If an MSME says, hey, look, my problem is I have too much of wastage. What can digitalization do? Then you use a technology and find a solution for that, right? Or you say, hey, look, I'm not able to manage my material requirement or my inventory control. Then you have a different solution that you should be looking at. So there are different solutions for different problems here. And then also, the overall, I think the cost of bringing technology into the manufacturing plants has gone down. You don't need your own data kind of center. You don't need your enterprise. I mean, you have a lot of names that I can take here. The cloud solutions are there. And if you believe, hey, look, I had set up my plant years ago, and I don't have a possibility to change the compute and communication on those, how do I get benefited now? I think that's where concepts like edge technology come into
computing, yes.
edge computing comes into the place. So, if you could really have edge computing in your plant and then say, hey, look, all the data aggregation, collection, inferencing can really happen at the edge. And that gives you the kind of latency that you need. And you don't really have to change a whole lot of investment that you have already done, correct? Because edge becomes basically an extension of what you have in your setup, and you still derive all the benefits that digitalization can do. So I think overall MSMEs will have to go back and think, what are their top problems today? And then there's a plethora of digitalization technologies that can be used, but they have to be applied rightly, and they would give you return over the times. They would give you return over the times.
Right. I think very interesting insight, Pankaj, and I think very good tips also you've given, and especially in this COVID period where they say conserving cash or cash is king. So I think this has more significance for the MSME during this period, because they can really benefit, and if the whole supply chain also can be synced in a proper manner, they would also save cost on material input coming in. You don't need excess material then, and you can really synchronize that. So I think very, very good insights. Thank you, Pankaj, for these insights. Pankaj, coming to a little bit to the skill development factor. Now, when manufacturing is changing, we require new skill sets also coming in, the people, new graduates. One of the complaints of the industry always has been, Pankaj, that the graduates coming out of our colleges, engineering colleges, they are not fit for the industry or fit for the job. What has been your experience, Pankaj, here when you're interviewing the people, your new recruits? What has been, if you could share your experience, and what would be your suggestion to the young graduates? How can they make themselves better equipped for the companies or to be fit for the job, Pankaj?
No, very, very good point, Rajesh. I mean, I cannot agree more on that. I mean, that's absolutely a big problem for us. I mean, we talk about becoming superpower and taking ourselves to the next level and all of those things, right? And we are very proud of our demographics, saying, oh, we have people less than 35-year-old, we have people less than 25-year-old. But the question is, what can you get done with these people? I mean, it totally gets down to that, right? I mean, you might have a best of the vehicle, but if it doesn't have a fuel, it's not going to run. correct? It's as simple as that, right? And that's what even I see, barring some of the top institutes, I mean, that we all know the names of, right? But majority of our education system is really focused on giving degrees than the learnings, right? And people are just so much driven to get a certain degree, get a certain certificate in place, rather than having the learnings required for the today's job market or for today's needs of the industry by and large, right? So there's definitely a big disconnect. I would say, what is that all the youngsters who are coming out of the college or who are still in college can do. Um, I don't think just blaming government and education system is going to solve anything. First, there's a lot of information available, right? One cannot have an excuse that I don't know where to learn from. I mean, we are not in that era. We are not in that age. There's just so much of information available, right? It's really about attitude to learn, right? It's really about saying, hey, look, I'm not here just to get a degree, but I'm here to learn the skills which are going to help me to do what I need to do in the industry going forward, right? Be it certain digitalization technologies, or if it's really about certain research aspects that people want to get into, that awareness needs to come in from the youngsters also, and they start focusing on what needs to be done. But then, of course, there's some guidance required as to, hey, what do I focus on, right? What do I learn about, right? Just having energy is not good enough, but where do I spend my energy is equally important. So I would say, if you look at the way overall industry is progressing, right? I mean, definitely cloud technologies, digitalization technologies, analytics, AI, ML, and I don't know, maybe sometime in near future we might start seeing quantum compute word coming out soon. I don't think, you never know, this might just come on platform or radar soon, right? So those are the technologies I think youngsters will have to start really working on getting themselves ready. If you look at, let's say, there's certain segments of industry who are doing different things. If you look at, let's say, Amazon, it's really engineering customer experience, correct?
Right.
It's really engineering the customer experience. If you look at guys like Google, they are engineering the information and providing the value out of it, right? If you look at healthcare guys, they are again engineering health information and trying to find out, how do I improve the healthcare services, right? How do I give you a faster diagnosis, more accurate diagnosis? How do you provide the care at the time when it's needed, right? So that, I mean, somebody needs a care at time T and you go like 6 hours later, it could be too late. I mean, how do you kind of bridge that gap? So those are guys doing that. Now, when you look at people like us who are working on, let's say, industrials, mobility, and infrastructure and all of that, we have a very interesting opportunity, responsibility, challenge, what you might call it, at hand is, how do I connect this real physical world with the digital world?
Yeah.
It's a pretty interesting opportunity at hand, right? Because now we need to, you can't go and dismantle the current setups and say, I'm going to do everything new and that's what's going to be smart. It doesn't work like that, right? So how do you take the current physical world and connect it to the digital world and make it smarter and create better services out of it, right? How do you unlock the potential of what you have today? So for someone who's looking at this kind of sector, should be really started to think on those lines. And then what we do internally when we hire people, we have our own something called campus to corporate program. So people come on board, and then we have some very well thought out training modules that we put people through, and it's an ongoing. It's not like you come and get trained for 90 days and you're done with it. So there's a big thrust on learning culture within the organization, because learning is not important only for people who are graduating, but a lot of people like us who have been in industry for long now need to learn something new for us to take this thing to the next level, right? So overall, I would say, I mean, these youngsters have to focus on what's required in the industry. As I said, different industries have their different things going on, and they should really look at the areas that they need to start learning. Yeah.
Right. I think again, very thoughtful insights, Pankaj, and I'm sure it will be very helpful for our audience also. Pankaj, coming to the last question for today. There are so many unforeseen factors colliding all at once in this present scenario. Factor of uncertainty, one doesn't know how things are going to go forward. It makes the work for CEOs much more challenging. So, what would be your 2 or 3 tips we would like to hear from you as your piece of suggestion to the CEOs of the German companies? How can they navigate their boat through the stormy waters of COVID and maybe beyond COVID also for some time? Because I think we will continue to see a challenging phase for the next 1 or 2 years. So, what would be your tips, Pankaj? Yeah.
Sure. I mean, I don't think any management school would have taught you for a situation like this. I don't think so. I mean, there are absolutely unforeseen circumstances, right? But based on what I kind of I would say observed, right, and what works at least from where I see it, right. First and foremost is focus on what is important, because there's just so much going on around us, right? Geopolitical things, and then this related to COVID situations, and a lot of forecasts as to how the industry might turn out and what may happen. And majority of that is beyond our control, correct? So I think it's very important to spend our time and energy to focus what is in our control with a very good element of resilience, because who knows, this thing might last a lot longer than what we wish for. Nobody knows, right? So we have to start building a strong resilience for ourselves and for our organization. Focus on and of course, while focusing on what is in control, because when you do that, a lot of uncertainty starts going down, right? Otherwise, if you keep on trying to do a lot of things and trying to guess a lot of things and spend your energy on that, you will just add more to the uncertainty. Right. And what your organization would be looking up to you is to give certain element of direction, certain element of certainty, certain element of resilience, right? So I would say first would be really focus on what's in your control, and that takes care of lot of things here, right? Second, I have been practicing a lot, and I think that's a good thing that I would want to continue. And we have this something called zero distance with your stakeholders.
Okay.
Strive for zero distance with your stakeholders. What it means is, first of all, who are the stakeholders? Your customers, your employees, and your ecosystem partners whom you work with. I mean, it could be your vendors, if in manufacturing, it could be suppliers, and all of that, right? So a zero distance with stakeholders is very important in this, and how you achieve is over communication. It is required in these times because everybody is feeling that element of uncertainty. Over communication with being completely transparent would bring that sense of calm, saying, hey, look, there's this guy who's close to me, who's listening to me, be it employees, be it your customers, be it your ecosystem partners, because they want to hear what is that you're going through. What are you thinking? What's on top of your mind? Don't keep your stakeholders guessing, because in these times, people would guess negative things. Yeah. So we have to be very careful. I would say strive for zero distance with your stakeholders. Otherwise, employees would think, hey, CEO is not talking to me for 3-6 months. Looks like a bad announcement is about to come. Right. There must be something that he or she is not talking, right? So you have to build that zero distance, I would say, communicate as much as you can, and it's never enough. It's never enough, right? Third, I would say, just because times are tough, don't lose focus on innovation. Because once things settle down, once things start getting back to normal, the ones who have focused on their core innovation areas will continue to differentiate. So that's a big focus inside my organization in general around. And as we talked about ingenuity for life, right? I mean, we are an organization who has seen a lot of pandemics. We have seen a lot of turmoils like other generations. I'm not talking about myself, but ingenuity continued, right? I mean, the drive to innovation continues. So I would say these are the three things, focus on what's in your control, zero distance with your stakeholders, don't lose your focus on innovation. Yeah.
Right. Thank you so much, Pankaj. I think very good insights you've given, and thank you for sharing your thoughts. And also, I think these 3 points, very valid points, focus on what is in your control, zero distancing, communicating with the employees, with all the stakeholders, and continuing with the drive for innovation. So that would mean all your R&D projects and all would continue as per planned also, Pankaj.
Absolutely, absolutely. We don't have any innovation project that is stopped by whatever means. So we are, as I said, right, our productivity levels continue to be almost close to pre-COVID levels, and that's what we would continue to strive for. Yeah.
Right. So thank you. It's been a pleasure speaking to you today, Pankaj, and thank you for sparing your time and giving us all the insights. And on behalf of the German Engineering Federation, wishing you, your team, and the family all the very best. Pankaj, stay well in these difficult periods.
Thanks, Rajesh. Thanks for having me again. And I really wish the same for everybody. Please, everybody, stay safe, stay healthy. I mean, that's most important for all of us. So I hope wellness for everybody here. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Pankaj. Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye.
Yeah, goodbye.